So Alora asks, have you ever stopped and restarted keto? I find it hard to get restarted. And yes, we have stopped and restarted keto dozens of times over the past 3.5 years.
Never in a way like, I'm throwing in the towel, I'm done with this, I'm going back to carbs forever. It's always been planned. It's always been something that's been very intentional, and that's one of the reasons that we have been more successful of getting back on, is because we try to create these guardrails around the going off and then coming back on, right? We are accountable to each other.
Yes, but in the beginning, we made that first year we were on keto, we did go off from time to time just as a split-second decision.
Yeah, and that was some early on, just like, oh, we just don't really.
Right, so, and that was a struggle. So we experimented with cyclical keto dieting for about 6 weeks, and we found that to be very difficult and not beneficial for us. So we learned some lessons the hard way, and we've learned a lot of things that hopefully will help you with this problem. So number one is one that Jeremy alluded to, is never go off keto in the moment. That is something that you have to make a commitment with someone else. But what happens if you allow your mind to know that you can go off keto whenever you want without any accountability, it tends to happen more and more and more often, because the language in your mind is, I deserve the thing you want.
Yeah, or this is just easier for me, and I'm stressed out, and I just need something easier to do.
So the problem with the I deserve mentality is that it's really focused on short-term reward. Because if you really start to think about what you deserve, isn't what you deserve good health? Isn't what you deserve to feel good in your own skin and your own body? To feel confident, to feel strong, to feel capable, to feel like you are the one sitting in the driver's seat, steering the direction your life is headed? I mean, isn't that really what you deserve? Not the cupcake, not the chips, right? It's deeper than that. But what happens is our mind is hyper-focused on the short term, on the immediate reward. So if you create a rule and you say, you know what, I'm not going to go off keto just because I feel like it in the moment. That's not going to happen anymore. I'm just going to put that behind me. I've made those mistakes. That's fine. I'm going to learn from those. And from now on, it's only going to be planned going off. I'm going to have thought about it. It's going to be intentional. And while I'm off, I'm going to enjoy it. I'm not going to beat myself up. I'm not going to feel bad about myself the entire time. That makes such a big difference.
Yeah, because it kind of lets yourself off the hook, right? Because when you spontaneously go off, that whole time that you're off, the whole time that you're just in this kind of a shame spiral, right? And that shame spiral is just that. It spirals to something worse and worse and worse until it just gets, either it gets too hard to get back on and you abandon it altogether, or you just really, really struggle with getting back on. But when you give yourself the guardrails, when you make a plan and execute the plan, it makes it a lot easier to allow yourself some time off and then say, okay, I enjoyed my time off and now it's time to get back on. It's just a small change in mindset that pays huge dividends by the time you're coming to the end of your planned period.
So next, and this is very a fresh topic in our minds because we just went on vacation and we went off for a handful of days intentionally on purpose. So how do we do that and get right back on? Well, we create what Jeremy just said, guardrails. So what does that mean? That means we have a planned date and time we go off. We have a planned date and time we start again. That date and time we start again does not get to move. We make a commitment. We proclaim it publicly. Normally that is to our 4 teenagers. Have you met a teenager who doesn't like to call you out on your crap? I mean, like, they are pros. Even your little kids, grandkids, like if you're like, hey buddy, I need you to hold me accountable to this. I need you to call me out on it. They will. They are so good at it. And they don't understand, right? Like the whole shame thing. They aren't afraid to say something to you. So, or use the whole keto free Facebook support group that we run. Set guardrails. Say, hey guys, I'm going off here, I'm going on here, and I'm going to be back posting. So if you don't see me, right? So you've proclaimed it publicly. Even better though is to have that accountability partner. Now you can get into trouble. Like, we can make excuses, right? So if we're like, I bet I can convince him not to go back on. Like, yeah, I can, right? You have to, but you have to make it bigger than yourself. You have to think, you know what? I do want to stay off. I want to like keep cheating. But what about his health?
Yeah. It's
so if you
it's really easy as a married couple or as a couple of any kind to want to give the other person everything they want and desire. So that can make it a little bit difficult sometimes when they're just like, oh, I see it, that they're enjoying themselves. And well, maybe if I just said, let's just go a little bit longer, we could do that. And then we could both have a little bit of fun. But that's really not serving her and it's not serving me. So we try and, recognize that for what it is. Something else you should do is pay attention to how you feel in your body. Because I guarantee you after a couple of days, it is going to change. Especially if you've gotten over a lot of inflammation, achy joints, and pain, that you are going to those are going to subtly start to come back, and you should notice that and just realize, okay, if I don't get back on now, this is going to progress. This is going to get worse. I am no longer going to feel as good as I do in my body as I do when I'm eating keto.
Right, you might start to feel lethargic and tired. In fact, those of you who have gone off keto, comment below and let us know, like, how do you feel when you get off? And what are your tips that you could share with someone struggling to get back on? So the final tip that I would leave you with is to think about why you're going off. Like, really spend some time thinking about that, praying about that, journaling about that. What is it that's coming to your mind that moves you off? Deeper than just the food. Because when we have cravings, that is simply a desire to feel differently than we do now. So typically for myself, when I want a treat, right, a carb, something of my favorite old comfort foods, it's because I've had a really stressful day and I want to feel differently. I want to feel relaxed. My brain wants that dopamine hit. So think about, what is the feeling you're chasing? And then ask yourself, well, is eating that thing actually going to get me there? Because the answer probably is maybe in the moment, but then from there you've gone backwards and you actually feel worse than if you had just, done something different. So and I'm going to give you one more tip, actually a bonus tip I just remembered, was our keto emergency plan. So actually, Keto Chow has become one of our keto emergency plans because it tastes so indulgent and it's delicious. The Keto Cupcake Cookbook that I have out. So we have cupcakes in our freezer all the time. We're actually out right now because the kids just ate them all. But that means I need to make more this week. So we always have keto cupcakes in the freezer. Now, why would that be? Because these things happen. We have a crappy day. We get a phone call with bad news. We get stressed, we get busy, and we're like, oh, I want a treat. Well, if we have a keto cupcake in the freezer that we know we can go, we get it, set it out, 15 minutes later, it's ready to eat. It's thawed, it's ready to eat, maybe 30 minutes. Number one, sometimes I don't even eat the cupcake 15 minutes later because that thaw time, I'm like, yeah, I don't really want it anymore. And then it goes back in the freezer, or Jeremy eats it. Or I eat it and I'm happy and I'm satisfied and I stayed on plan.
Yeah, and often we talk about this emergency crash plan as a way to protect yourself when you're just getting started in keto. But in reality, you can use it as the way to get back into keto. You're like, okay, I really want to get back into keto, but I'm having a hard time doing it. So why don't you just start by mowing down your favorite keto foods until you get maybe a little bit sick of those keto foods or whatever, and by that time you're back into your diet and you can just say, okay, that wasn't necessarily the best way to eat keto, but it got me back to what I want to do. Right. So it's a great way to get started back as well.
Yeah, and just practice getting back on track faster and faster and faster. So we hope some of those tips for how to get back on keto are helpful. Let us know in the comments.